The CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now your host, Calvin Glen Alexander.
Welcome back to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. As always here, I'm your host, Calvin Glen Alexander. And on this episode of the podcast, I am rejoined by a old coworker, I guess, but a Lakers fan, San Diego native, but now Portland habitual. I don't know. Native, I guess. And Jeremy Begun. Jeremy, how's it going?
Going well, Calvin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on. I know as Lakers season has not turned out the way that you or I expected. I think I'm in full record of saying I thought the Lakers season would go much differently, especially Westbrook getting a championship or at least being in the playoffs. But I want to talk to you about a lot about the Lakers here and kind of see what the next steps are for a famous franchise, an HBO series about the franchise now too. So I don't know. I mean, how have you felt about this season? Like LeBron, AD, Russ, you putting blame on anyone necessarily?
It's been a whirlwind, of course. I'd have to say I've kind of had a little bit of a up and down, I would say, like most Laker fans this season, where, all right, when's it going to turn around? Or is it going to work right away? Of course, injury luck, kind of getting some continuity, some starting lineups that are there together. And I mean, it just never really ended up how any of us saw it, especially to this degree, going on 50 losses in the next couple games. So definitely not something I expected, but I don't know. It's hard to kind of point exact blame. Obviously, the main thing I would say is probably injuries. Like main three players, AD, LeBron, and Russ, played probably 20 games or so. I don't have the exact stat in front of me, but not a lot. So it's kind of a back and forth. I mean, as you know, Westbrook's always going to be available, except for the one game he was in Portland, but we'll hold him against him for that. But don't want to talk about that game at all. But injuries probably, I would say, was excited about the team at the start. I thought it was going to be a team well set up for the playoffs when we get there, if we got there, and we didn't get there. So kind of went down that road. And I mean, coming back and looking on the season, you can go injuries, you can go, I'm sure you see a lot of NBA Twitter and Lakers Twitter blaming Russ for a lot of it. Personally, I don't think he's to blame. Like, he's pretty on par with his stats. He's never really been a shooter, and all three of them really need the ball. So kind of having him as a spot up shooter or taking a lot of jump shots, it kind of got maximized being in LA, I would say, as do a lot of sports and a lot of teams here in LA, being the Lakers especially. So looking back at it, it's probably the front office needs to, I would say, go in a little bit of a different direction and shake it up, whether that is either try to get off Westbrook's contract or keep Westbrook. Like, I'm personally open for anything, but I think we need to kind of blow it up and start over, and kind of potentially go in a different direction in the front office department. Not like personnel wise, but like maybe having one or so people making some executive decisions versus like hiring or signing friends, I would say, to put it in that respect.
Yeah, I was watching the game last night a little bit against the Suns. Two things stuck out to me. One, DJ Augustin's still in the league, still getting minutes. Now, as a Thunder fan, we signed 3 guys to play against Portland last night who were all on 10-day contracts and played 40 minutes. So I'm not DJ Augustin get the bag, but
yeah,
the Thunder won that game. I mean, beat that.
I know
the Blazers this year. It's ridiculous. I cannot believe it. But I didn't know Austin Reeves would be playing this many minutes, and I am not hating on his former school, University of Oklahoma,
right,
which is a rival of the school I went to, Oklahoma State.
Right.
But I don't think a LeBron-led team or a LeBron, Anthony Davis, Russ trio coming into the season when you have Kendrick Perkins going, they might scratch 70 wins. They might do all this stuff, is going all of that put together with Austin Reeves playing a lot of games, just a lot of games. I knock on wood here, I think I'm going to go to the Lakers Thunder game on Friday night if everything all works out plan wise. I've seen the Thunder play the Lakers 4 times this year. 2 of those
That'll
times
be
so
three,
far. Yeah. So
3
2
and
of those
1 probably.
could be. I mean, I really hope the Thunder. I never want the Thunder to lose, though. I never liked the idea of tanking, so I shouldn't say that. I want the Thunder to win every
Right.
game. I feel like karma's a deal, and it just works out how it works out. But Trailblazers are like a half game back at the Thunder in the loss column
Yeah,
if you're
right.
trying to tank for odds.
At
So
this point of the year, right?
whatever. And then Thunder play the Clippers on Sunday again. Back-to-back years playing the Clippers, but I digress. Point being, Austin Reeves is not the dude on Lakers team. Stanley Johnson's not the dude. And LeBron was the guy. And I think at some point it's okay, what is LeBron doing for this team? And LeBron is the best player that you and I are going to watch for the majority of the time we watch the NBA. Like, I don't think I'm going to watch another NBA player play more time in the NBA and be as good as he has been, period. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But I would say at this point, it's have a open conversation with LeBron going into last year of his contract of going, hey, like, Laker Nation loves you. You brought us a championship 2-3 years ago. For any Clipper fan making fun of us, yeah, where's one of your banners? Any one? Show us one, right? Lakers won one, granted, 2 years ago, 3 seasons ago. And, it was a bubble championship, but still, like, it's a championship. No one's going to be talking about, oh, LeBron has 3.5 rings in 6 years. They're going to be talking about how KD has 2 half rings with the Warriors, right?
Right.
That's all we're going to be talking about. So, on one hand, you want to give LeBron all his due, all his respect. On the other hand, you got to be like, hey, man, like, if you don't want to be here, that's a discussion to have, at least, because the Anthony Davis haul has just not worked out the way anyone thought it would. Not having the draft pick this year for the Lakers sucks. The Pelicans get it. And then I got to say, personally, just as like an NBA fan, I don't love the narrative constantly about a guy. I didn't love the narrative about Coach K the entire year. I didn't love the narrative about, oh, is it going to be Chet Holmgren, the whole year, or Jabari Smith, or whatever.
Right.
But I do like, seeing great basketball being played in the playoffs without LeBron. I feel like LeBron still has plenty left in the tank. And so it's not like, oh, it's the twilight of his career and he's going to miss the playoffs, but it's kind of one of those things. It's like, why did he sit out last night? I mean, injuries, sure. Like, everyone's kind of going through some injury stuff here, but that was a must-win game to keep playoff hopes alive, and he didn't play. And Anthony Davis and Russ did, so credit to them. But then again, Anthony Davis played like 40 games this year, I want to say.
And
it's going to be 80.
Yeah, and he should not be playing because he is just limping immediately on start. But yeah, just go back to that forefront of that question that you had as well with Austin Reeves and OKC playing them on Sunday and the game yesterday as well. I saw a graphic on Twitter. I think it was the Thunder Blazers, and it was, I think I know a couple of the Blazers names because my roommate's a Blazer fan. He always has it on the TV. I didn't really know anybody else. I probably knew 3 out of the 10 players that started that game. And I know, I think you saw on Twitter, it was 90-72. And I was like, I bet you the Thunder are going to win for some reason. And I should have bet on it. Didn't bet on it, unfortunately. Would have won. Would have made fun of my roommate. But he left, so he didn't even watch the end of it. What a real fan he is, huh? But anyways, yeah, like you said, like you come into the season, you're expecting AD, LeBron to carry the load. Like you said, like LeBron sitting out last night. I honestly, going into the game last night, we're not beating Phoenix, especially this year, especially since it's kind of one of those teams, I hate to say it, where their 4 best players are not playing tonight from having back soreness or whatever the reason that has to be said on in public to not play. But I mean, they being the 1 seed with the chance to control their own destiny of who to not play in the play-in game, because the Lakers couldn't get anywhere higher than 8th if they won 2 games or even got in the play-in. So I would say that's probably the last team with who knows if LeBron's back, AD's back, we get hot for a couple games. And I mean, who knows what happens in a series, but I mean, they wanted to kind of end that, and I wasn't going into last night expecting too much, especially with somehow the what's his name, Deontay Murray-less Spurs beating the Nuggets by probably 20 on the road. Didn't expect that, but another chance to get the Lakers out without any kind of destiny in their own hands. But like I said, like they were last night's a tough game that I wasn't expecting them to win. For me, the season's kind of to been over those couple Pelican games where 20-point lead, lose it on the road, lose it at home, and I'm just like what to say now? But I mean, to kind of go back to that beginning where you have Austin Reeves playing big minutes, like LeBron has a way with his teams where he needs shooters. He needs like a veteran-led team around him, which well known. This was a very veteran team, a old team, too many, which at the start of the year I was very excited about, just with knowing some of the players, some of the contracts that we had to get over, and then the Rush trade. Like, listen to a few people and a lot of Twitter, a couple podcasts, like Colin Cowherd, for example, like listen to him when I'm driving a lot, and just a couple other shows, and he had a really good point. Like, essentially, like, we know the type of player Russ is. It's obviously magnified because he's in LA. He's on national TV 60% of the time throughout the season. And you look at his stats, like he's probably, I don't know, at the top of my head, probably like 17, 7 and 7 or something, which pretty on par to what he has been, obviously, before his like triple-double, high 20-point seasons, which he was on teams where he was the guy. But his role was to get them through the regular season. Like, in the playoffs, with 80's injury history, LeBron's had been good history, but since joining the Lakers, he's been obviously 37 years old. So a couple more of these nicks and injuries are gonna take a bigger toll, I would say. So the main goal was to get to the playoffs, obviously, and like with the high aspirations and expectations of winning a championship, having probably the first, second best odds to win at the start of the season. Like, I couldn't have pictured not making the playoffs, especially with the playing game of having 10 teams like have an opportunity. But yeah, it started just kind of right away where we lose the opening game, which we never really have success in those, playing either the Warriors or the other LA team sometimes on opening day. And I mean, it was just in and out of the lineups. 39 lineups we had starting the games this year, and we only run 30 games. So not a real chance to get continuity, anything like that. And having Austin Reeves, who everybody seems to think, oh, he's the rookie, the small guy who we could pick on defense and offense. And like, to be honest, like, he held his own, like, in a capacity that people would have expectations for a rookie who's undrafted out of Oklahoma. Like, he played well. He knows how to play basketball. I would say I don't like to say he's like similar to Caruso, but like, he has the same kind of mentality. Obviously, Caruso is like an all-league defender, one of my favorite players still in the league. But I mean, Austin Reeves played well, but I mean, how much can you really put on him to make a big impact on this team when you have three alphas designed to get this team to where it needs to be, and just never happened. So yeah, especially, and kind of going back to another part of your first question as well, where like some of these teams where, like the other LA team is essentially playing their NBA championship every time they played us. They're like, some absurd, like 30-6 or whatever record there's been. And it's like, okay, like that doesn't matter to a team like the Lakers and other teams kind of having their best shot each and every day. Like, you see the NBA champs always getting a best shot from each team, and maybe they're one or two national televised games a year. Like, they're going to be up for it, versus like the Lakers, like they're always going to get that game from somebody. So that part's not anything new, but yeah, is honestly just disappointed because a LeBron success-led team is a team with shooters and defense, and we had none of it this year to a degree that our 2020 team had with KCP, Caruso, Danny Green, and depth. Honestly, like we had a bunch of minimum contract guys. We had we had Kendrick Nunn, who had a bone bruise the whole season, so I don't even want to really talk about that. But yeah, a lot of different directions to go. But yeah, it was tough, to be honest.
Yeah, the things that stuck out to me, like coming into the season, I thought, okay, got Malik Monk on a really, really team friendly deal as a rebound contract. You know, it's a way for him to go, I am worth something.
Yeah,
You didn't
he
get
played great
Schroeder.
this year, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. He's,
I wanted him last year to trade him from, I think it was on the Hornets last year. I was talking to my buddy. I was like, we need to, if we can get him and like someone else. We were talking about last year's team, but no, I was really happy with him, especially on a minimum contract too. Like that was great. So
yeah.
sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, no, you're totally good. I mean, he has been 39% from three. I've been looking up just kind of stats here throughout.
Yeah.
The I guess the main deal is like the guys who like leads the amount of games is how I sorted this to look through. And
Right.
of course, Westbrook's played in 78 games so far with 2 remaining, I believe, right, for the Lakers.
Right.
That's tough. Like,
yeah,
if Westbrook's playing in 78 games and then the next guy playing the most amount of games is Malik Monk at 73, Carmelo at 69, and then Avery Bradley at 62, all of a sudden,
right.
okay, we're there. And 62 out of 80 games from Avery Bradley, that's fine. But then when you're talking about Dwight Howard and Taylor Horton Tucker and Carmelo all playing more games than LeBron, that's tough. LeBron is averaging 30 points a game. Like if he plays last night, injuries are a thing. Like I'm not.
Yeah.
But then again, the Thunder have sat guys after guys. They had not to make this just a Thunder to Lakers podcast, but also at the same point to kind of make it like that in comparison. The Thunder are actively trying to lose games. Like if anyone else is looking at it, there's one single stat of a guy from the G League who's 24, 25 years old, Lindy Waters the third, who went to Oklahoma
I like
State.
him, actually.
That's why I know who he is, of course. But he had 8 points in 4 minutes last night and then was sat for the rest of the game. Like, he was on a G League contract to start the season, gets called up, and does so good so quickly. Thunder like, okay, we got to sit him now. We don't want to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
And that just, I think, goes to, okay, well, if the Lakers had signed Lindy Waters, and I don't think he'd be doing anything close to being as good, right? He would be the Austin Reeves guy who'd be getting picked on. It'd be, when I was watching, kind of not the play of the game, but I was watching the play of the game last night where I was like, oh, this team's just absolutely done. So I kind of like look up from my phone. I see Austin Reeves guarding Devin Booker at the top of the key 1-on-1, and Devin Booker just goes around and takes him to the rack. And I'm confused why that was possible. Like why Austin Reeves is out there, even if he gets switched on to him. Why there's just not like the half second that I'm watching before Booker goes to the basket of Reeves being switched. You have some other Lakers defender coming over help side or whatever it may be, because the team that won that championship to me had so many versatile defenders, but also had Caruso, who I think Reeves could be in 4 years. Right. But Caruso also is 6'6" or something. He's much taller than I thought he was.
He's bigger. That's the main thing. Like he's a lot bigger. He's obviously been in the league for a couple years, and like I get like that's why I kind of go back and forth in my head. I'm like, it's kind of a comparison. Obviously, Caruso I think is a better athlete. Like they're both. It's weird to say and probably like hard to. I've probably from watching 78, probably the high 60s to low 70 Laker games this season. Like he's a really good defender. Like Austin Reeves, a good defender. I don't know if there's like a stat for this, but he's probably been hit in the face more than any player in the NBA and got called for probably half of it. Not complaining about that. Just thought it'd be kind of funny to bring up. But no, he's in position. He takes his charge. It's funny though, because you go on some of these national broadcasts and they're like, oh, gotta switch him on to Austin Reeves, or Reggie Jackson seeking out an Austin Reeves matchup, and it's like he's in position. He's just, I don't know. People have the confidence that they're like, this guy's on me, I'm going to score. Which obviously you're in the NBA and you feel in lack of a better word, disrespected that this guy's guarding you. Like, I got to go take him to the rack. But like, there's many times in games, it's kind of a weird way to look at it, where many times in games where someone goes right at him the first play and like he'll block him or he'll take a charge or he'll be in position, and then it's just like you kind of hear some about it where they're, hey, maybe we want to go right at him, like Ty Lue, I can't even say it, freaking other LA team. I don't even like to say their name anymore, but they're like, yeah, like we're going right at him the whole time, and it's like, well, that's what you probably should do, and they're adamant about that, and that's where it kind of gets like why Austin Reeves is playing, hey, how many, like this many minutes, but at the same time, it's like with the roster we have, it's essentially hard to say this from thinking of what we were like at the beginning of the season, where we expected none to play a prominent role. Ariza is old, but there for defense, there for matchups. Didn't have Stanley Johnson on the team at the beginning of the year. Like, he's playing big minutes. He's starting. Like, we never really had a continuity where we would play a certain lineup. Like, every night, like I look on Twitter before the game, 34th different starting lineup, 35th different starting lineup. And you're like, yeah, like Avery Bradley plays 62 games, but Avery Bradley only starts when LeBron and AD and Dwight Howard are playing in the starting lineup. So like he doesn't even play other games really, or he's like an afterthought. So it's such a hard thing to judge because there's not been any consistency. That's the most frustrating thing to me, where you can't have the same 5 people starting back-to-back nights, and the next guy goes down with an injury, the next guy goes out with COVID, the next guy goes out for 3 weeks, and it's like, well, you can't really, I mean, judge is not the right word because it's hard to kind of see what they would have been or could have been, but the reality is, like, that's not what the world we live in. Like, AD's injury prone. Russ plays every to all game as hard as he can, regular season, like can average a triple-double every night. Not the greatest shooter. Like, that's not news to any basketball player. And when it's magnified and people are looking for a scapegoat or a way to blame, or AD's not playing, or LeBron's stat padding or stat hunting to catch Kareem, it's like there's so many. I kind of like seeing the different narratives and the different ways, but it's also at the same time, it's like somebody's looking for a story. Somebody's looking for something to say because the Lakers aren't doing well. That's the kind of direction they're going to go. But yeah, it's just one of those things that comes with being a Laker fan, I would say.
Yeah,
All the
you
different
definitely
directions.
touched on something that I was going to ask you about, but you summed it up really well. The Lakers are on TV so much. I mean, you're on TV in tomorrow night too, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And because of that, every team has you guys going, we want to beat the Lakers. Like, I want
We're
to show
ready.
up the Lakers.
Yeah,
Every
we're
single
going to be
time.
ready for this game.
Yeah, we're going to be ready for this game, not only, but also the Thunder. Like, okay, we're going to take it to Westbrook because we're on national TV for a couple of games this season. Or, we're going to take it to Westbrook because it's the, you and I know from working like in sports sales, it's the elite game marked, right? Like, so most fans will be in the arena this night. We want to shut up our own fans who came out wearing Lakers jerseys tonight, but I'll be back wearing Thunder jerseys tomorrow, which I don't know how much that happens. I'm just kind of, it happens throughout the league. So for me, as just an NBA fan, like, I want to see LeBron in the playoffs, but I want to ask you as well here too. Like, Austin Reeves, his over/under in my mind, I'm like, all right, if Austin Reeves starts this many games in the season, they're not making the playoffs. And if I had that thought and come in with the prediction, that would probably have been pretty good, because my over/under would have been 8 games. He started 16.
Yeah.
He's played in over 50 games. Not to make this an Austin Reeves podcast, but like Malik Monk is averaging 27 minutes a game. I also would have said if Monk's averaging more than 20 minutes a game, okay, not the best sign ever, because he just doesn't play defense. Like, he just is not. He's not as bad on defense as Reeves is, but he's been in the league a lot longer. He's more athletic. I don't think anyone would question that. And he's also got just more height than Reeves, I think.
Yeah.
I do know for sure that Westbrook is right now averaging, as you said, 18, 7, and 7. That wasn't going to change. And when I'm going in my head, okay, I'm totally cool with the Lakers winning a championship. This is before the start of the season. Because I'm like, all right, well, then
Right.
Westbrook gets his championship. Then all of a sudden it's not
Right.
KD, Russ. KD got 2, Russ has none,
Right.
whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm cool with Russ winning it.
Right.
But that's knowing, okay, well, Anthony Davis needs to play like upwards of 55 games, if not 60. LeBron needs to play 60 minimum. And neither of those
Mm-hmm.
guys are going to touch those numbers. Anthony Davis
No.
played his 40th game last night with 2 left. So no matter what, he's playing half the season,
Yeah.
maybe more than one more game than half the season. But
No.
it's a tough spot to be in if you're a Lakers fan, I would say, just on going through the whole team. And you always have the Bulls on your back because every team sees you as an opportunity
Right.
to show themselves on highlight footage or just to show up. The Lakers,
Right.
especially if you come out here in LA. Like you come out here in LA, you play against the Clippers probably, and then you play against the Lakers a couple days later. Everyone's like,
Yeah.
all right, cool. Like, which one of the 2 games are we like going hard at if you're a tanking team? And
Yeah.
it's gotta be the Lakers because you just have you have the name.
Yeah.
It's Kobe, it's Shaq, it's Kareem, it's Magic, it's now
Ex-
LeBron.
exactly. No. And like you say it like East Coast teams play. They got 2 games in LA. They play the Clippers and they play the Lakers. It's hey, I guess it's usually like either a back to back or kind of a day between game where they're playing both those teams when they're out there. But it's like, yeah, it's just another game. You play the Clippers, and you're like, all right, like I'm in LA. We're playing the Lakers tonight. Like I'm ready to go. Like I'm like getting up early. I'm at the gym. I'm ready to go. And like especially from like a fan perspective too, it's like you live in LA now and you go to a Clippers Thunder game, the tickets are probably what, $20 cheaper. You go to a Laker game, you're probably spending upwards of $100 for nosebleeds. Like that's just the reality of like what it is. It's the bigger feel, it's the bigger brand, it's the big team, and everybody's going to get up for that game. So that's the thing. Kind of going back to the Russ point, where from the Lakers perspective versus like where he's been on teams like the Thunder, the Wizards, the Rockets, like they're on TV, their teams were viable like when he was on those teams. Not saying the Lakers, I would say not viable, obviously going by this season, but they're relevant. Like they're on TV, they're scrutinized, they're magnified. Like you go on Twitter at a 7:30 Laker game, it's Lakers versus what is it? Some random team in the East, like the Magic or something. You go Lakers Magic 7:30, like half the country is asleep. You go on Twitter seeing that, and it's like, oh, Westbrook at it again with his like bank shot off the side of the backboard. It's like, what else do you guys have to talk about? Like the guy's still playing well. He's averaging what you said, 18, 7, and 7. There's over half the league that would be career years getting their next contract if they averaged something close to that. So I think, and it comes with the territory. He knows he's from LA, went to UCLA. Like you've followed him, obviously being starting out with the Thunder, and you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a guy who goes all out, maybe not the most defensively gifted or effort wise all the time, but you're getting him to run the offense, probably the best rebounder at his size, arguably for any guard, I would say, getting the rebounds, assists, and then taking to the basket, uses athleticism. We've known for however many years Russ has been in the league, he's not an elite jump shooter. And the magnification to seeing his 1 or 2 shots a game that are maybe not as close or don't go in and out or hit the side of the backboard, like, yeah, that's going to happen. But I mean, just going off of this entire season, like you start the year where AD's a little injury prone, unfortunately. I think he gets a little bit of a bad rep that he is, I would say, quote, soft. They say he's, quote, soft because he misses a lot of games. Like, I'm one of those people that don't like watching injuries on highlights because it just kind of sends a little chill down my spine, and don't like to see it. I kind of, hey, like he sprained his ankle or he twisted his knee this way. I'm not going to look at it, but I mean, the guy doesn't. It's kind of just like it just sucks because he gets hurt, and it's to like a greater degree than just like, a little sprained ankle. Like his ankle goes the other way, his leg goes this way, his knee, whatever. Like he gets hit in the face. Like he literally like. Obviously as a player, you don't want to not play. Like if you can play, you want to play. And he's just one of those guys, like you just have bad injury luck. And the way that I foresaw this season was Westbrook's going to be in every game because he's pretty durable. He gives you all an effort, what we really needed to kind of take some of the load off LeBron and AD. If AD got hurt, you got two of them to play. And obviously, AD got hurt. He's out for most of the year. LeBron, a couple different times this year, is out. And I don't know. It's hard to kind of see where this team had any sort of chance to play together because someone was always unavailable. And it's hard to see what they're going to do going forward, too, because they don't have a draft pick. There's rumblings on, do we want to break up the team? Like personally, I don't see any difference of success if we run it back with the same core. And it's weird for me too, because I like Westbrook. I've liked Westbrook from afar. Like I thought he was is great and still is. I just don't think the three, I mean, of course now seeing it for certain sample, I guess 20 game sample is not really a lot, but for a season where it's just not going to work. So the best teams, like you go back to the 2020 team where the Lakers had LeBron and AD and their surrounding cast, their deeper kind of bench. But the main difference is they were healthy. The two stars were healthy throughout the year. And they're healthy throughout the year. They're playing their best basketball. They got a couple months off, I guess, due to the pandemic, which I'm not going to say it did not help, but hey, it's the hand they're dealt, and came together, won a championship, and it's like seeing all these narratives where it's like, oh, the Pelicans won the trade, they're back in this and that. It's like, maybe down the long run, but like I think the Lakers have a stat now. They're 7 out of 9 losing seasons in the last 9 years. And I'd probably bet that most people in the NBA, most teams in the NBA, besides maybe a few at the top that are consistently there, would take 7 out of 9 losing seasons with the championship. That's just me. So,
I mean, I can say this as a Thunder fan. I would take 8 losing seasons if one of them out of 9 is the championship. We were so close to 2012. Getting back to there is ridiculous. I could make fun of the Portland Trailblazers for the rest of my life if I wanted to, just because the Damian Lillard wave
it's a lot of fun.
More about Lillard waving bye to his whole team. McCollum gets traded this year for Josh Hart. Like, what are we? And a bunch of other picks, but still, like, Lillard doesn't play this year. We're not really even talking about that in any media at all. And he's 31, 32. He's not much younger than Westbrook. So, but regardless of the Trailblazers, like that playoff series sucked because under Trailblazers playoff series, like Paul George was more than likely somewhat injured. We'll never really know. And then Russ doesn't play the greatest ever, which it happens. Yeah. And you lose like that. But I really go back to like the Warriors series with KD, Texan, Draymond during the series. It's like, okay, that was the year for the Thunder, knowing that was one of the years. Like injuries are happened to everyone, etc. But I would take one losing season out of 9, or obviously I would take one championship season out of 9 if 8 were losing, because it's the championship. It's what everyone's working towards. It's what you want. It's why the Thunder are currently, may win 25, 26 games, and I'll be like,
awesome.
And
that's 5
like, I'll be going,
which is insane.
Awesome. Right. Yeah, I'll be going, this is great. The Thunder won 26 games. They hit their over on the season prediction of win-loss, etc. But I'll also be going in the back of my head, like, please, like, let karma happen and we get the 3rd draft pick or the 2nd or the 1st, in this year's draft, especially because I wish there was a better way than tanking. I wish there was a better way than I feel like the NBA lottery is what it is. And I feel like the lottery has changed now where, okay, now if it used to be, if you're the the absolute worst, you have the best draft odds, and the second, the third, whatever. Now, if you are the third through first worst team in the league, you have the same odds. So at least it's a little. But I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, what do you stop at 5? I mean, it's just a weird deal. There's no perfect way to fix this in my mind. Of course, if there was, we would know about it and be talking about it daily until it was changed.
Right.
It's usually the deal with everything. I just want to ask you this question, though. I mean, clearly the Lakers are the team that a lot of free agents want to come to, especially guys who are veterans, to go grab a ring. It's not the Bucks. It's not, who won it all last year. It's not necessarily the Suns. Maybe a little with JaVale McGee, but that doesn't count to me. And it's not the Nets either, who have KD and Kyrie and had James Harden start the season. But it still is in my mind the Lakers. Now, the key difference is that now you're coming to a team where you may not get minutes to be on the team, but you may get a ring and a great, championship after that. Just what would you want the Lakers to do here going forward? I mean, you touched on it some here. Draft pick, talking about Russ. In my mind, if Anthony Davis plays 30 more games, if he somehow, some way, his injuries he has a rolled ankle, but he's back 2 games later instead of 10 games later, right? That type of stuff. I'll ask you this first. Do you think that this team, as composed, as is right now, with maybe a little different role players mixed around, but the main Russ, AD, and LeBron could be playoff contenders, really, top 4 team in the West, if LeBron, AD, and Russ all play 70 games?
Yeah, it's a big if, I would say. The 70 game is, I don't know, with Westbrook, I think that's realistic. I think LeBron, being realistic at 37, 38 years old, next year, I would say Laker fans would probably be happy if he played 60 to 65 games, even below, lowering it down from 70, I would say. But AD is the question mark, because when he's healthy, he's one of the best players in the game. And this entire team is designed for LeBron and AD as a duo. And now adding the big 3 with Russ, the thought was hey, we know these guys are a little injury prone. Russ going to get us through the regular season, play a bulk of minutes, play all out hustle. I see when you say all 3 play 70 games, I have a really hard time envisioning that.
That's the most extreme.
Right.
All 3 are not playing 75 games. I'll say that way. I 100% know that. So I'm trying to set a number that I think in my head could be I'll give it a 10% chance that all 3 play 70 games. Right. I'm trying to go from there.
No, I got you. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah, I would to be honest, my heart's leaning that it has to break up some different direction, where I just don't think in a salary cap era where we have 3 players making the absolute majority of the money and people having to take pay cuts or having to play and pay, and in this case 16 games starting Austin Reeves, who's an undrafted free agent. Props to him. I would say deserved it, but at the same time, it's he could probably have that same season with a different team where he's maybe the 8th or 9th person and kind of contributes in that direction. But I mean, my heart says that we have to change it up. I mean, it's hard. I like Russ, and you've seen him. I just don't think it fits long term, or at least for the next 2 years or so and it's going to be hard to get off his contract, because he's making $40-something million a year. But at the same time, we don't have a draft pick. We have a bunch of guys on minimums. So the way that I think that this team gets fixed as in being back to a championship contender, which is the expectation when you have LeBron and Anthony Davis and I guess and Russell Westbrook on a team. But you have to build around what makes a team around LeBron successful. He likes veterans. It's been an actual pattern with his teams where he starts when he goes to Miami or when he comes back to Cleveland or he goes to the Lakers, like all three of these teams had a decent or really good young core, but were traded to get that superstar, that Dwayne Wade, that I guess free agent wise, the Bosch, and then to be with D Wade and Bosch, and then back in the Cavs with Kyrie and Kevin Love, and now Lakers with AD and Westbrook, and it's like there's a pattern where he feels it out the first year, they win in the second year, not obviously this year in the third year with the Lakers, but like the back to back with Miami and then one with Cleveland, like it's like kind of, and it kind of sounds like from what other people have been saying, so I listen to like a lot, it's like a 4-year kind of window where LeBron starts a team, gets a certain level, has his guys, his veterans come in, and then it's kind of what to do next. So it's a hard place to be, but I would say being in LA and as a Laker fan, like you said, a good place for free agents to come, a place that people want to live, people want to be. You live in LA right now. I'm assuming you like it. And
Yeah,
I mean,
no
the
complaint.
weather's good. The beach is not too far away. You got all the stars, all the biggest teams like in that area. So my thought for next year, I know I'm kind of rambling and trying to think exactly what I would envision. It's kind of hard to envision right now, but I mean, it's going to have to be, especially with 3 huge contracts or 2 if we somehow move one of them, that we have to get people that are, I wouldn't say ring chasing, but want to have an opportunity to play with this team and go to like a level where they have to sacrifice, where like that, like keep going back to that 2020 team where it's like you never knew one game this like you're not going to play, and the other game like you're going to play heavy minutes and you're going to be a big part of this team, where it's just going to have to be one of those where I do think youth has to be a priority, because you saw this season, especially with counting out AD and LeBron, like Carmelo was hurt, Ariza is kind of in and out hurt, Kendrick Nunn had he had a bone bruise the whole year, and he still hasn't played and is not going to play. I don't know that doctor side of a bone bruise, but I don't know how that. Anyways, I don't want to go into that detail, but he's out the whole year. Other people missing games for certain reasons. Like we got to go a little bit younger and get some sort of continuity. And I don't know if Frank Vogel's the guy. I think I believe in him. He coached this team to a really solid like 2 years in a row with the championship, and then last year we had pretty good defense. And this year the defense is probably mid-20s if I had to guess. Offense is kind of where it is, but it's weird. Like the type of the league this is right now is it's the most successful teams have obviously a superstar, or it's ball movement and kind of moving around the offense. The Lakers is very ISO post up related, even pick and rolls at sometimes. But if that's going to be the case, like especially with those 2 or those 3 on the court, like you got to put shooters in the corner, or else they're just going to sag in the paint. Like they're going to have help defense, and it's really not going to go anywhere. So to make this long ramble to an end, I think in my heart, like I like Westbrook a lot. I just don't think this team can win or get to a level of winning with him paired with those 2, with LeBron and AD. I think they have to go in a different direction and try to acquire some sort of draft pick or some sort of young player in his 3rd or 4th season looking for something to prove, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I got to agree. I really wish Russ could stay with LeBron, because I don't see him moving to another team with the current contract he's getting paid and with his player option as well, doing anything really. We want to talk about, okay, Russ going to, I mean,
the only thing I've heard is back. The only thing I've heard of with a contract that can match is back to Houston for John Wall. Like, I mean, who knows? Like, I've been a big John. really like John Wall, like in the past too, like as a player, but like what's going to be the difference if we have John Wall versus Westbrook? Like I still think Westbrook's a far and away better player,
Yeah,
but
and
that's the
it
only thing that
who
makes
knows
sense.
what you're getting out of John Wall. Like, if the Lakers have
Right.
to give up something to get that, it's
Oh, they
stupid,
have to, which is
and
ridiculous.
that's part
Yeah.
of it. The Rockets are sitting John Wall on purpose because they wanna let their young core develop, and I'm not a
Yeah.
Jalen Green guy, I'm far out on that guy right now, but I just don't know who could be traded for Westbrook. I don't know, like, the NBA trade machine, like, what's possible. I would love to load it into 2K and just see, like, what the 2K suggestions are. Because if there's
Yeah.
one more trade besides John Wall, I would say, you know what, the Lakers should probably do it. As a Westbrook
Yeah.
fan, I would say, listen, what needs to happen here is that the Lakers are going to have 6 guys under contract coming in next season, looking through it. But you have 3
Right.
guys making almost $40 million a year each. I mean, you have Anthony Davis making 37, LeBron James making 44, and Westbrook making 47 next year. Now next year is Westbrook's last year of his deal, so he
Right.
could, and it's a player option, so he could. It's not the craziest thing ever to say Westbrook could opt out of it and re-sign with the Lakers to a better, longer-term deal to spread the $40 million out over 4 more years and really make it easier on the team, and maybe sign for 50 for 5 or whatever it is, right? I'm making up a number here. Just
Right.
make it easier. But besides redoing something like that, the main thing the Lakers have to look for is kind of what you said. Go grab some guys from the G League. Go grab some guys from other teams that are on two-way deals, or other guys throughout the league that are just going to be good. But let Avery Bradley go. Let Wayne Ellington go. Let Carmelo. Let Dwight. Let Trevor Ariza, Kent Bazemore, Malik Monk, Austin Reeves, DJ Augustine, Wayne Gabriel, and Mason Jones. I mean, Luol
Right.
Deng and DeAndre Jordan are off the payroll after this year, which is great.
Yeah.
Say it that
Finally.
way. Great. And you know what? Maybe you decide, let's keep Reeves and let's keep Monk if you can keep them at the same salary, because that's a lot of names I read off all in a row. You have to have a roster of 12 to 15, and there's only 6 guys signed for next season
Right.
altogether, and that includes Stanley Johnson. So
Yep.
bygones are bygones. Probably could redo it. Wouldn't have signed Taylor Norton Tucker. THT probably could have been just, hey, we'll pass. We're good. But he's 21. Like, he's the youngest guy on the roster,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to kill him over for it. The
No.
Lakers could have him on a great deal if he's healthier for more of the year. I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
He's only
in all of
making, I
this,
think, like 10
yeah,
million, 10 million a year or something. So it's not
yeah,
an outrageous contract.
which isn't the worst deal. It just
No.
sucks that Cruz is getting almost paid the same.
Right.
So, altogether, to wrap it up, if I'm if I'm a fan of the Lakers or the Thunder, I think the Lakers have a much easier shot at getting back to serious contention with the next 3 years. But once we go 5 years or more, anything's possible.
100%.
I would bet the Thunder then. And
I
I think the
honest.
Lakers need to spend this next offseason trying to either go, let's win it all in the next 3 years with LeBron, or let's make sure that the next 7 years we're at least building back to the finals if we don't think the next 3 years are going to go great.
No, absolutely. And I hesitate to agree with you on the Thunder probably in a better, obviously going to be in a better position 5 years down the road, but it's the reality. It's like 5 years down the road with all this young talent that you guys have or accumulated, where Sam Presti's gonna eventually he's gonna make a move with some of these draft picks and get somebody to pair with Shea and not don't kill me. I don't know exactly the other players on OKC, especially looking at the other day. I couldn't recognize anybody, but like at some point, like you have Shea on his big contract, you're gonna have to get some of those draft picks and someone, and then maybe a free agent, and you guys are rolling. And in the Lakers case, it's different because we've never, our Lakers have never really went through a process where we can figure it out through the drafts. I don't believe, at least in my like at least recent memory, like the Lakers get back to relevance with their all NBA player and a free agent, like Kobe and Shaq, Kobe and Powell, LeBron and AD. Like it's the formula that they're I would say forced to, but it's the formula that they go by. So it's hard. It's hard to see with the lack of draft picks and options that we have going forward. But like free agency, I mean, it kind of sucks to have like this like argument, but it's like you said, like where the Lakers are in LA, they're going to attract free agents. They're going to attract people that maybe will take that will take a discount to have an opportunity to, at one, the very least, play on national TV 60% of the year. 2, have a chance to obviously go win a championship when you have LeBron and AD on the team. And 3, it's like there's worse places. Like even thinking about it from like it's hard because I'm obviously not a player, but like listening to so many different podcasts and TV shows, things like that, it's like people want to live in LA. People want to build a brand in LA. There's so much money in this part of the world where people will take a little bit less to get a start there, and especially with a team like the Lakers, like it could happen. And kind of actually thinking back to the Westbrook, I guess opt out or opt in, like realistically, like there's no chance that I don't personally think you opt out of $47 million. Like I don't care if I'm on the worst team in the NBA, probably at that point, like I'm probably gonna stick with that contract. So I don't blame him either way. Like it's what I would do if I was in this situation. Obviously, like looking for the best case scenario for the Lakers, like him taking like a friendlier deal, but it's not the reality at that point, which is hard to kind of come by. So I do think the front office has to have some sort of shakeup at some level. Like there's a lot of Jerry Buss, Jeannie Buss, like kind of people in the room still, and then Clutch Sports now with LeBron being an AD and other Clutch Sports athletes being there. Like I'm not sure if his like CEO or LeBron obviously has like a lot of say in a lot of things, but it's a GM's job, like for a reason, or a front office's job for a reason, to put the team together, to work out the money, to do all that. And at a certain time, like this year, that's a failure. Like you have all these Hall of Famers on the same team, and it's like, oh, you put in that narrative, oh, they have all these Hall of Famers on the same team, but at the same time, it's like all these Hall of Famers that are either in the end of their prime or past their prime of years, and that's going to be like, oh, all these Hall of Famers should be a good team, when the reality, where you see some of these younger teams who are playing all people that are 24, 25, 26 years old, like running up and down, don't get hurt, play 70 games a season. Like it's just the way it is. And with the injury, lack of luck, I would say, like there's not really a way I don't think this team could have gotten to that next level. I mean, who knows if they somehow snuck into the play-in game, kind of gone from there and everybody was healthy and in that sense, but like we're never going to know.
Never going to know. Well, hey, Jeremy,
Yep.
thanks so much here for joining me on the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. If you're not already, please follow Jeremy on Twitter, but also follow at the CGA Tour on Twitter and Instagram for more. Thanks so much again, Jeremy. We'll catch up soon in person at some point, maybe at a Padres game if you make
Absolutely.
it down. But I'll be thinking of you any Padres game I'm watching here in a little bit, just those fun times in the office. So thanks so much
Absolutely,
again.
Calvin.
We'll catch you guys
Hey,
soon.
no problem. Thanks for having me, man. Have a good one.
Thank you.